There was a time when friendship did not require effort. You walked to someone's house unannounced. You shared lunch without calculating expenses. You spent hours talking nonsense that somehow felt deeply meaningful. Connection existed naturally because life was slower. Earlier stages of adulthood provided built-in social repetition through neighborhoods, religious gatherings, and long-term workplaces. You were surrounded by people by default. Then life reorganizes. You pack up, change jobs, or migrate to an entirely new city. The structures that once held your social life together are replaced by the logistics of relocation. This is where friction begins. Physical proximity vanishes, and you are suddenly forced to navigate clashing time zones and conflicting schedules just to have a conversation. When you are removed from those built-in community systems, friendship stops being a byproduct of your environment. It becomes an intentional task, one that requires constant, active maintenance to survive. This geographical transition creates a specific emotional consequence: the silent, gradual fading of bonds that once felt like family. We have frameworks for processing heartbreak, divorce, or death, but there is almost no cultural language for the pain of drifting away from a friend who knew your biggest dreams. These relationships rarely end with a confrontation. Instead, one postponed meeting becomes 6 months of silence. Daily calls become birthday messages. Eventually, even the memories begin to feel distant. This leaves millions of adults carrying the grief of almost friendships. We feel a quiet guilt for losing people who didn't actually leave, but simply disappeared from the daily rhythm of our lives. Social scientists call this friendship shrinkage. It is a measurable decline in social circles that often follows major life transitions like marriage, parenthood, or career pressure. This phenomenon is tied to the work of British anthropologist Robin Dunbar. He studied the cognitive limits of human social networks to understand how many relationships we can actually sustain. Dunbar suggested that humans maintain roughly 150 meaningful relationships, organized into layers, with intimate connections in the center. As adult responsibilities increase, inner circle capacity changes. The mental load of a career or family dramatically reduces close friendships to accommodate the new weight. Economics plays a role here too. In cities like Auckland, Sydney, or Toronto, the high cost of living forces people to work longer hours. Financial survival consumes the emotional energy required to reach out. When rent, mortgages, and career instability dominate your thoughts, friendship unintentionally becomes secondary. In this environment, the fade isn't a personal failure, it's an economic reality. To bridge the gap created by migration and exhaustion, we turn to social media. We use digital visibility to replace physical presence. This sets up a psychological deception. Because we see someone's vacation photos or life updates, we feel like they are still part of our lives, but visibility is not intimacy. This diagram shows the resulting confusion. Your brain sees connection in a like or a reaction, but your heart remains unchanged. You register the interaction, but you still feel alone. Many adults today have constant digital interaction, but very little emotional safety. They have hundreds of followers, but no one to call during a breakdown. This isolation is often gendered. Many men lose connections when the activities they bonded over disappear. Women often find their emotional energy diverted into caregiving or domestic responsibilities. Technology creates a mirage where we are overstimulated by the updates of old friends while remaining emotionally undernourished. Shifting away from loneliness starts with reframing these fading bonds. Rather than seeing them as failed commitments, we can view them as natural transitions. Some friendships are situational or tied to a specific identity. They served a purpose for a certain chapter, like university or a first job, and were never intended to be permanent. The person who matched your teenage personality may not fit the reality of your adult life. As your environment and priorities shift, a degree of emotional distance often follows. It is also helpful to distinguish between people being uncaring and being unavailable. Many adults disappear because they are fighting private battles or are simply overwhelmed by the day-to-day. Understanding that distance is often a byproduct of exhaustion rather than a lack of love makes it easier to let go of the guilt. It allows us to appreciate a friendship for what it was, even if it is no longer what it used to be. Addressing this isolation involves moving away from passive online scrolling and toward intentional human rituals. These are small, repeated interactions, a regular phone call, just walking together, or checking in without needing a specific reason. Connection survives through these slow, repetitive moments. The grief of adult friendship is often a longing for a world that is less mechanical and less exhausted. We are asking for presence, for someone to notice when we disappear. That lingering instinct to message an old friend after a success or during a moment of pain is proof that the bond still matters. It leads to the final realization of adulthood. You can deeply love people who are no longer part of your daily life. That grief stays with us because they still matter, and in a world optimized